Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Welcome back, brothers and sisters, from the short break. We were discussing before the break the issue pertaining saying salam to non-believers. What's the ruling Islamically? We brought the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam states that do not initiate salam to non-Muslims. Here, scholars are of the opinion that one is not expected to say salam, deducing from that hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said, do not say salam to the people of the book, and yes, other people, meaning even if they are not the Jew and the Christians, they also take the ruling of the Jew and the Christians. Now, in this state now, some people will say that, well, that there are some maybe misconceptions, that there are some verses, or there is a verse in the Quran that shows saying salam to non-Muslim. Just like I heard someone saying that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam said to his father, قَالَ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكَ سَأَسْتَغْفِرُ لَكَ رَبِّي. That he said, Salamun alayk. Then such individual, as I had translated that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam said salam to his father even when the father is not a Muslim. But is that really the case? To understand this, we need to now review the books of tafsir to see what did the scholars of tafsir say with that regards. Ibn Kathir, as well as As-Sa'di, as well as At-Tabari and Al-Qurtubi and lot of other Mufassirun said the meaning of Salamun alayk, meaning you will not receive any harmful statement from me, any ill statement. You are not going to receive it from me, O Father. I will not do same to you as you have said ill statements to me. Just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the believers when he said, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. You see, قَالُوا سَلَامًا in that context does not mean they say salam, meaning they say statements that are not vain statements, that are not ill-altered statements and things of that nature. They try to control their wordings. That is what is meant with that verse, as explained by Al-Qurtubi and other scholars as I stated earlier. Meaning that verse does not state, it's not even pertaining the issue of salam, but the issue of saying what's called good statements that do not carry something that is evil in them. Now, what if such an individual, meaning the non-Muslim, now starts the salam, initiates the salam? Can you respond to the salam or not? Some scholars are of the opinion that in that regards you can only say wa alaykum and you also. Wa alaykum and you also. But you cannot say wa alaykum wa salam. They said because when the Jew came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they said salam to him saying assalamu alaikum, meaning death be upon you. They wanted to use that means in what? Giving or praying, bad prayers for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, since the word assam and assalam sound alike. But then, not knowing that the Prophet ﷺ already knew what they were saying, and the Prophet responded saying, Wa alaykum, and you also, may the death be upon you also. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ now commanded that while one is responding to Ahlul Kitab, he should say, Wa alaykum. Some scholars said that is the peak you can see. While some scholars said if you are certain and you are sure that they really uttered the salam correctly, they said assalamu alaikum correctly, in that sense you could respond saying wa alaykum salam. But the only thing in that regard that you are not expected to say is to say wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah, because you are not expected to start the salam. And in that regard, you will have you started the rahmah. He only stopped in as-salam, so in that regard, you are supposed to stop at as-salam. They said, look at it from another angle, that even if we now say that you say wa alaykum, what's the meaning of wa alaykum, and you also? So that means if he clearly says assalamu alaykum, you're also saying and peace be upon you. That is what it means by saying wa alaykum. So here, even if one now says wa alaykum salam after he's certain that they made mention of the correct salam, then there's no problem in that regard, inshallah. Now, the other issue here is, how do we respond to salam after someone says assalamu alaikum to you? Then how do you respond? Here, you are expected to now say either giving him back what he gave you by saying wa alaikum assalam, but it is best you add on that. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا خُيِّيتُمْ بِتَحِيَّةٍ, that whenever you are being saluted with a salutation, he said, فَحَيُّ, then respond بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا, with what is better than it, أَوْرُدُّوهَا, or at least give them back what they gave you. So here it will always be better if one could now add on that. Meaning when he says assalamu alaikum, you say wa alaikum assalam. When he says assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum, you say wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. When he says assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you say wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What if he says assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh? Al-Usaymi says that the salam stops in wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. He said wa ilayha intaha salam, that it is on that the salam stops fi asahi qawlay ulama, in the most authentic statement of the scholars. Here when he says the most authentic, that tells us that there is also other view apart from the view that states that the salam stops in wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, of course, there are some views or some scholars that felt you could add on that. You could say wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu wa maghfiratuhu, or wa tayyibu ridwan. All these they said you can add. But then some companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam kicked against adding on wa barakatuh, just like Abdullah, the son of Abbas, did when someone said salam to him and he added wa maghfiratuhu. He said no, that the salam stops in wa barakatuh. Same applies to Ibn Umar. He also said that the salam stops in wa barakatuh. That is why Al-Ruhayli, Sulaiman al-Ruhayli, said, looking at the fact that there are some authentic traditions that came with adding on wa barakatuh, amongst which Al-Imam Bukhari reported in his book Al-Adab al-Mufrad, he said that will mean that yes, sometimes there are some companions that normally add on wa barakatuh, but it is something that is rare. So meaning, even if you want to add on wa barakatuh, it should not be something that you take as a custom. It should be something that you do in some, sometimes and not always. Also, note that whenever you say salam and you say assalamu alaikum, that fetches you 10 rewards. And when you say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, it fetches you 20 rewards. And whenever you say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, it fetches you 30 rewards. Just like some 3 men came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One said salam and stopped in salam. The Prophet said he has 10, and and then the other stopped in wa rahmatullah, he said 20, and then the last in wa barakatuh, and the Prophet said 30 rewards. The other thing here is, what about the pronoun? The word assalamu alaikum, that kum there is a pronoun. The pronoun that is used for a group of people that you are addressing is kum. Can I change the pronoun if I'm addressing an individual and not a group of people by saying assalamu alayka? Here some scholars are of the opinion that it's best you say assalamu alaikum, just like Al-Imam Nawawi explained in his book Al-Azkar. But then the most authentic view here is that if one is is familiar with Arabic, then there's no problem in changing the pronoun in saying assalamu alaikum. Some scholars said that is the best because that came in the traditions of the companions and what have you. Also, we have cases where what about after we have met with an individual and I want to now take my leave? What am I expected to say? In such situation, one is also expected to say salam. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا جَاءَ الرَّجُلُ الْمَجْلِسَ, if one comes to a majlis, a gathering of people, a sitting of people, and then he says salam, he should say salam. If he sits there and then he now wants to take his leave, he said he should say another salam. For the salam said later or said earlier is not better than the one said later. Meaning, just like you say salam when you meet a believer, you are expected to say salam when you leave the believer. Also, if something separates you, just like the companions, even while they are walking together, and then a tree or something comes between them, a building comes between them, when they meet again, they repeat the salam. That tells us the significance of the salam. There are also issues that have to do with who is expected to initiate the salam when two Muslims meet. Who says the salam first and things of that nature, which inshallah we are going to discuss that inshallah on a later date when we have this thing. So stay tuned with us and try to keep in touch, and inshallah we're going to discuss a lot of things pertaining salam and other manners that we practically need to know them. That's because we frequently observe such manners. I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this discussion a beneficial one, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward us and then the viewers abundantly. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.